It's receiving like, hey, I'm live. All right. Let's do a quick sound check. Maybe. So sound looks like it's working just fine. All right, let me get this link tweeted out. Twitter. And I'm live on Hoosier Hardware. Talking about 7 alternatives. Alright, so tweet that out, guys. Let's go ahead and run this intro. And we are here on Hoosier Hardware. Tech is fun. Lovely. So, we have today the Galaxy Note 7 has finally, as of yesterday at least, been put out of its misery. So this, according to The Verge, and has been confirmed by several other sources. But Samsung has announced that it is done producing and selling the Note 7, saying, quote, "Taking our customers' safety as our highest priority, we have decided to halt sales and production of the Galaxy Note 7. So there's that. Now, there was an article I was reading earlier today, and it was talking about the first round of devices that were recalled. Remember, there was one round of devices blowing up, catching on fire, spontaneously combusting, and Samsung recalled those and then later blamed those issues on the battery. So they sourced their batteries from a different location, and then they released the new version of or at least the fixed Note 7s, which then obviously started to do the same thing in several instances. I think the last number I saw was 5 or 6, and they've now pulled the Note 7 line completely. And here's the thing. It probably at this point looks like it wasn't the battery. Or either that or Samsung just has the world's worst luck with batteries. So the Note 7 is dead, which is a shame because, and I'm going to pull it up here real quick. If we go to the review of the Note 7, which I may need to... If we go to the review of the Note 7 and go clear down here, they've removed the number from it. I believe the number that The Verge had for the Note 7 was a 9.3. So this was a device that was extremely highly reviewed by not just The Verge, which is sort of my go-to blog for tech things, but it was widely regarded and widely recommended by reviewers all over the place. And I think the reason for that is pretty obvious. First of all, it's a gorgeous device. It has an awesome borderline bezel-less screen at least on the left or right side of it. Has phenomenal camera. Had the iris scanner, which was highly touted, and reviewers seem to like that. Just all around a great device, and then it gets plagued by this. So I'm really curious to see if the Note brand is brought back in future iterations like the Note 8 or anything like that. So I'm going to go ahead and run through a few of the phones. If you are a Note user or you wanted originally to get a Note, which it was a phone that I was sort of eyeing very closely, and then and Google had its event. I'll talk about that in a bit. but I was very strongly considering going for the Note. The things that were holding me back was the price point is crazy high, and also obviously it's fire issues at this point. So let's assume for a minute, and I'm going to go two different routes here. Let's assume first of all that you are a Samsung user, and this is going to be different than if you are a non-Samsung user. And the reason for that is if you are a dedicated Samsung user, you like their little ecosystem they've sort of built within Android with Samsung Pay and some of those other services they have, or maybe you just like their design of their phones, or maybe you think they have phenomenal cameras, which by the way they do have phenomenal cameras. If you're a Samsung diehard, there's really only one choice in my mind. There's a couple, but there's really only one choice if you are upgrading to a current generation phone. Outside of, and I will go ahead and throw this one out there, if you're a Note diehard and you really love the S Pen, then go back to the Note 5. That's the obvious choice because it will give you most of those S Pen features that the Note 7 had, but you lose the fact that you'll be on a current gen device. But the Note 5 is only a year old, and frankly, it's still a great device. It was a jump to the premium design too. So I mean, it's still a great design phone, and it's still a great phone with a great camera and all that. So if you're unsure because you were a Note diehard and now you don't know what to do with your phone situation, just go back to a Note 5. Find a used one. I assume they're probably still in stores, places for cheaper now too. But either find a used unlocked one or just find one and go the Note route. But if you are looking for a current gen phone, that's what I'm going to focus on. If you're a Samsung diehard, the really only choice there is for you is going to be the Galaxy S7 Edge or just the Galaxy S7 regular. The difference, of course, being that the S7 has a smaller screen that is not curved on the side. You lose some of those extra features that make use of that curved real estate on the side. And from what I've seen and heard, I've never used either of these devices myself. But what I've seen and heard is that the S7 Edge is really regarded as like the premium of all designs for smartphones because it's easy to hold in the hand, from what reviews say, and also it has a bigger battery than the S7. So if you value battery life and that ultra premium design, it is a slightly larger screen. Go the S7 Edge. In fact, I would recommend that all day long. The S7, really only go that route if you really don't like that edge-to-edge display, or maybe you just don't like that curved display at all. But other than that, there's no reason to go away from the S7 Edge. These devices are both super expensive, as are all three of these suggestions I'm going to give you, because I'm, again, assuming that you were on a Note track, whether you already had one and are exchanging it, or whether you had planned to get one. So you're planning on spending a lot of money. Now, you could go like the OnePlus 3 route, which is a great phone, or get a last generation like Nexus 6P or something. That's still available to you. But if you're going for the high-end phone, then S7 Edge is the clear route if you like Samsung's ecosystem, or you like their software spin on Android, that sort of thing. And they're great phones from everything I've seen, read, or heard. That being said, and by the way, the nice thing about the Samsung route here is that they're available on all the carriers. You can get them on whatever carrier you happen to be using, no problem. The next one is sort of if you are just in the market for a high-end smartphone and you're not necessarily committed to either Apple or Android ecosystems, and the reason for your non-commitment may be that you just use pretty much free apps anyways. Maybe you haven't bought a bunch of games on one of the platforms, and maybe you use a lot of interchangeable services. Like if you're big into Google services, well, you can get all your Google services on Apple products and iOS. So this one is a little bit more of a stretch for some people, but follow me on this. Here's what I'm thinking with the iPhone, and I would go with the iPhone 7 Plus, again, because I like the battery life, and also the camera situation is a little better on the iPhone 7 Plus. But the reason you may want to go this route is because maybe you snap a lot of pictures. If that's you, if you snap a lot of pictures, and by the way, I apologize for not making this a little bigger for you guys, but if you snap a lot of pictures, then the Apple route is sort of for you, because it's always been a 1-2 race with Samsung and Apple cameras on their smartphones. Apple typically, at least in the earlier generations, tended to be regarded as the best smartphone camera. In more recent years, the last couple years, it seems like Samsung's cameras may have been a little bit better. But both cameras are great, phenomenal cameras. So if you really, really like snapping off pictures, and by the way, the S7 Edge, same camera as the Note 7, I believe. So again, camera's in good shape there. But the iPhone 7 will give you another phenomenal camera. If your services that you use are pretty much the free services or apps that are cross-platform anyways, then go ahead and go the iPhone 7 route. I would personally not, because I'm sort of an Android diehard at this point. The last time I had an iPhone was an iPhone 6, and that was over a year and a half ago now, and I do not regret. I loved it, but I do not regret switching back to Android after that phone. So that's an option for you, the iPhone 7 or 7 Plus, if you prefer that bigger display, which I do. The last one is the one that I am actually personally in the midst of upgrading to, and I say in the midst of upgrading to because they are not out yet. So depending on when you watch this video, I believe they're supposed to ship in 8 days, so just over a week. I believe the date that I saw and heard was the 20th. So if that's the case, if you can wait a week, whether that be because you hadn't upgraded to the Note yet, or whether that be because you have a burner phone laying around that you can just, wait on for 8 days, then the Pixel could be a good option. And again, bearing the camera in mind, the Pixel is supposed to have a great camera. Now, the verdict is still out on that, because obviously these phones are not in the hand, well, they may be in the hands of reviewers at this point, but we do not have those reviews out yet. But the camera is extremely highly touted. You get your standard premium smartphone features that we've come to expect, and even they've trickled down to mid-tier phones now, but like the fingerprint sensor. The cool thing about the Pixel phone is you'll get Google's new Google Assistant, which is probably the single biggest feature with the Pixel phones. And this is also Google's first stab at a standard smartphone made by and produced by Google. Now, yes, HTC is the company that's actually building it, but HTC didn't have any say in the actual design of the phone. They're just building it. So they're just the manufacturer. So if you are embedded in Android's ecosystem and you're willing to take a little bit of a stab at a new phone or a new company making a phone, the Google phone is probably going to be a really, really nice device. So some of those, first of all, for me, the biggest selling point isn't even the Google Assistant, it's not the camera. For me, the biggest selling point is the fact that you will get those operating system upgrades, which it'll ship with Android 7.1, but you'll get these the Android operating system updates much quicker. In fact, it'll be the first phones that get those updates, much like iPhones get their updates pretty much immediately when Apple starts pushing those. A little bit of a caveat to the Pixel, though. It is only available on Verizon's network if you are buying it through the carrier. If you are buying it yourself, you can buy it through the Google Store, and in which case that's an unlocked phone in that regard, and then you can use it on AT&T or T-Mobile. Being that Sprint is a CDMA network, you will probably not be able to use it on that network because Sprint has, being CDMA, they have tight control over what phones can and cannot be used on their network. So if you are a Sprint customer, then you may want to but talk to a representative from Sprint and make sure you're talking to one that knows what they're talking about. But get a Sprint representative and just ask them, because I haven't read or heard anything about Sprint and the Pixel. Or if you're an international customer, which vast majority of every international carrier is GSM, which is also what T-Mobile and AT&T are in the United States, then you can use this phone unlocked. The other big thing that the Pixel is great for that is not available on the other phones I mentioned here is that you can go to Project Fi and use Google's homegrown service, which takes advantage of Sprint's network as well as T-Mobile's network as a virtual network provider. and typically it is cheaper unless you're a big time data user that needs an unlimited plan. It's going to be cheaper that way. And this, by the way, I have no affiliation with Google. I'm a little bit of a Google fanboy sometimes, and I do personally use Project Fi, so I really like it. I do feel like I should point that out because that is one of the other big selling points of a Pixel is that you can get onto Project Fi using Pixel. So those are my 3 phone recommendations. If you're Note 7, either turning it in or you had planned on buying a Note 7, those are the 3 high-end options that I would go with. When you drop down to the mid-tier, or at least the mid-tier pricing, then you bring into play your Nexus phones, your 5X and the 6P from last year, which are about a year old now as well. You bring in the OnePlus 3 as a great alternative. Motorola has some pretty budget-friendly phones that would not be bad choices. Or you can just stick with the phone you already have if you haven't upgraded yet for a while and wait for the next big thing. Maybe you'll wait until next year in the first half of the year when Samsung announces the Galaxy S8 Edge. I assume there will be an Edge version. So those are my sort of three phones that I would pick up if I were you. And that sort of wraps up what I want to talk about today on Hoosier Hardware. Hopefully you enjoyed the show. If you did, there's that like button down below. Also, there's a subscribe button down below, which I would much appreciate if you would hit me up on that. That way. So over here on that side, you'll see @Hoosier Hardware. That's my Twitter tag. Go ahead and follow me there. Great way to get a hold of me is to tweet at me @Hoosier Hardware. I'm gonna go ahead and run this lovely outro. You guys have a great evening.